Yo, what's up? How you doing, Elijah?
What's up? What's up? What's up?
Hey,
That intro.
go ahead, man.
No, I was saying that introduction beat is amazing. I'm freestyling on it while we're
All right.
leading up to the. It's
Dude,
just a nice
awesome,
beat.
man.
Yeah.
Awesome. We thought I just thought like so I'm heading out of town tomorrow and just thought, okay, man, let's just jump on this afternoon and
Of
just have a
course.
quick conversation, see what's up, see what's happening. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's been a while since I've like had taken on a regular basis, really just thinking and stuff. So
Right.
a lot of stuff happening, man. Damn.
Anything particular that's on your mind? I know that we wanted to preface maybe this conversation and really engage with the chat, and if anybody once Sam, you could offer up things that you've been thinking about that maybe you just want to, express, or also the chat, please, if there's things that you find interesting or you want to talk about. I think that's what a lot of the majority of this podcast can look like today.
Yeah.
Too. Um,
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And you, Elijah, can turn things into questions. I'm not going to watch the chat at all. So, but it really would be helpful. We don't have a lot of people
yeah,
watching, but if you could just throw a couple questions out that we could talk about.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
curious. No, go ahead, man.
No, I mean, I just immediately saw it's pretty striking. Just what I think, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, it's Michael or Michael.
Yeah.
Just what he just posted in the chat is it's heartbreaking also, and it's almost hard to say it, but
Yeah.
yeah,
You mean about Israel?
yeah,
Yeah.
what he just
Well,
posted.
it really is. Man, it's I don't know. I don't know what to make of it really. I mean, there's so many different things that I'm thinking as I'm watching things unfold.
Hmm.
Mostly I'm just the tragedy of just um, so much so much violence and destruction and uh and the potential for so much more tragedy is like what's really on my mind as I'm watching the possibility of things
Hmm.
just
What's the
expanding out.
Yeah. What's allowing you to see the potential? Like, what are you seeing that's happening? That's like, oh, there's so much potential for more destruction.
Well, I mean, listen, if Iran, if different nation states around the region decide, hey, we're gonna get involved in this, and as more and more weapons are sent, um,
How?
that I,
Mhm.
that it, that it there's as more weapons are sent to the region, it just man, it's just heartbreaking, and when we live in this militarized world of record-breaking profits from military arsenals, and
Right.
people are just going to sell,
Yeah.
and
When
you
you, mhm.
yeah, and you only and it's only by using weapons and these arms that you can sell more. That nations can only have so many in their stockpiles before. I mean, sometimes they go obsolete, but not very many. And so, therefore, if you want to continue to make profits, you got to sell more. And so, it's a kind of a vicious cycle that nobody
So
would say that, right? Like, no one would say it. That's kind of how it's operating. That these, that the companies that are selling weapons are operating that way, that they're going out and saying like, hey, we got to keep making profits, so we got to go find places where conflict exists and find ways to grow or expand the conflict so that we can sell more of our product, because
is it really that? Mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Is it really that simple? Like that thought process? It's
No, I
like
don't think. No, I
there's
don't think it is. I'm sure for some people, it's like it is exactly that. For sure, it has happened. That there's no question that it's exactly that in like windowless rooms that people are making these really horrific deals with the devil, so to speak, right? And that's exactly
right,
thinking. And you know, sometimes you see like these Hollywood movies about stuff like that, and it's
right,
just like, yeah, well, there are some examples of that, and I've read um, many stories about people in the industry and people involved on the uh, on the outskirts of the industry, so to speak. That's in a way it just indirectly happens that way. So it's
mhm.
very it's deeply disturbing. It's deeply disturbing. So
There was just Eric just posted a question in the chat. How can the U.S. justify its blind support of Netanyahu? What's the rationale for being so pro-Israel and anti um, Arab?
yeah, well,
If you
you know. I think that you um, there are a lot of ways to do this, right? But I'm going to take the sociological way. Like I'm not going to take the let me just take the sociological way in a certain sense, right? When you build a political economic relationships and when you build a sort of a geopolitical web of balance, okay, because it's really about balance and it's about geopolitics at layers at which like you really can't understand until you're inside of it. And I say that with all due respect to me not being inside of it, but I've been connected to enough people who are and see that it's just these kind of layers of if then statements that happen at the geopolitical level with nation states. So once you build a web of relationships and you start building on top of that and it becomes a tighter and tighter web, then you just continue with the essential relationships that have been established in the first place. So the US relationship with Israel has been really strong for many, many, many decades. And so when we think, well, why do we continue to? Well, it's a sociological relationship that has been based on politics and economics and culture and so on, and international relations that has been pulled through time and space, and it's so deeply layered that you don't just say like, hey, okay, we're going to stop here. And we can push, right? We can push our allies to do one thing or another. But again, I'm just thinking this is systems, right? Systems, in order to stay balanced, and we want systems to be balanced, you can't disrupt them a great deal. And so all these relationships are built on layers and layers of balance.
So are you saying that the blind, like going back to Eric's question when he talks about the blind support of Netanyahu, you're saying that there's deeply layered systems that like the blind support is due to just the historic, deeply layered
Yeah, well, yeah,
system. Is that what you're saying? I'm just trying to
yeah.
put
I
you
would
over.
say it's not blind. It's not blind. Okay, but what it is, it's little by little by little. So listen, it's kind of like a relationship or a marriage. You see that somebody's in, and you say, and it's just it's just incredibly dysfunctional. And at different
Mhm.
points in time, one or more of the people in the relationships are really toxic. And you think, how the heck did you stay in such a toxic relationship? How did this happen? Well, it didn't happen. It wasn't that way in the beginning,
Mhm.
and it's not always that way. And so
Mhm.
it starts to develop these tension points where of toxicity, right?
Right.
And sometimes you see it really clearly and sometimes you don't, and it's both
Mhm.
sides in different ways, and both sides then need each other in these
Right.
very subtle and sometimes not so subtle ways. And then at certain points in time it's really toxic and you think, oh my god, how is that? and it looks like one or more of the partners are just really acting in a stupid way, because it makes no sense that this would be a relationship that got formed, but it didn't get formed on those terms. What happens is, the longer you're in it, the more connector points there are between the people who are in the relationship, and the more difficult it is to get out of it. And so and that's kind of in many ways the issue here. And when you think about the things that are happening in the global arena that we the US can allow to happen, or other nations allow us to do, because we do some incredibly toxic things, problematic things, right? You think, how is that possible? But it's possible because people turn a blind eye where they need to turn a blind eye, because the other relationships are more important in a particular moment. Yeah.
Right. It
Does that make sense, bro?
Well, for me, what it made me think about was the Family Crucible that I've been reading, that Lori offered up, and it talks about there's a case study between a husband and a wife, and they have these initial problems and this tension, but the original tension becomes hidden because they're trying to create equilibrium. And like in the family, there needs to be a sense of equilibrium. And so instead of handling like their tension that they have with each other, instead the daughter would become like a scapegoat. And the daughter would become the problem. And then there's these new problems that are the focus that is kind of hiding the actual, disguising what the actual problem is. And so you were kind of taking me to that realm a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's very much like it's every system is the same, right? And so in that particular book, The Family Crucible is called. It's Augustus Napier. It's a great book for families. I wonder if Eric knows it, but it's from a systems approach. And yeah, it's just like the geopolitical system. Yep, it's a perfect analogy. Yeah.
Eric responded saying, no, that analogy to a toxic relationship does not make sense to me, based upon Netanyahu's refusal to abide by any expressed desire for a ceasefire. The U.S. should be seeking a divorce.
Well,
what are you hearing from that? Because I'm a little unsure of what.
Well, here's the thing. I've never been a fan of Netanyahu, who, in my humble opinion, probably should be in prison, because he's probably guilty of the crimes for which he's been charged. He and his wife both. I don't know the basis upon which I say that, but just my little bit of investigation. So I'm never a fan of this.
Could you give a little background on like who Netanyahu is?
Yeah, just bribery crimes, man. Just like, oh my God. But there are a lot of reasons. I mean, the guy, he is just pushed. It's just pure power, man. And he's pushed open the West Bank, the settlements, and he's just has just breached. He just pushes, right? And of course, Palestinians push also in different ways. But my God, man, it's just been the issue is this. The divorce, and on the world stage, a divorce of that magnitude on the world stage, it's like you can't even put it. But with the United States, let's say, first off, and you just can't even put it in that. It's just unprecedented. So that's what it is, and it's unfortunate and it's sad. Yeah. Yeah.
It's Packerman 28 is very simplistic point of view and not accurate at all. I'm curious to like what point of view he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, listen, there are a lot of interests here. First off, right? I mean, it's essentially a Western state in the middle of a region that is really important to us, geopolitically, I should say. It is.
What's the reason it's important?
Well,
Would you say?
in terms of the geographic, where it's located geographically, in terms of like the connections, ideologically and philosophically, and essentially, it's a democracy, and that's extremely important. And when you look at the origin of Israel and the origin of all the other the region in the Gulf, when Israel was established, it was an extremely important geopolitical state for the United States. So you can't look at it now. Now it's a little bit different, but if you go back 60
Originally,
years,
was it?
70 years, right?
Well, it was
So
more than just oil, right? Like originally,
yeah, no, it's
it was like more.
control. Yeah, but oil is essential, and it's all you understand. Like it's a region of the planet that did not have long-standing nation states, okay, and so that were with long-standing governments that were based in democratic alliances. And so it's just really, when you think about the U.S., right, and we're moving forward to be the U.S. and to have the resources that we have, then we have these alliances. And so Israel is extremely important, and also coming out of World War II. I mean, there's no question about how important it was to support. That people saw how important it was to support a Jewish state. Okay, so it's just like you can't. It's hard to hold that. People argue that, well, Israel's sort of like a military base for the United States, and that I think that's a simplistic view of what I am saying about the importance of this long-standing reliance of a state in a very complex region that's built on democratic principles. So, and once you start developing the relationships, they're deep and they're really strong. And so it's just hard to, it's kind of like, the other day, who said the other day, was it, I forget who said, I think it was Elon Musk. I think he said yesterday or something about we might just need some kind of a civil war or something. I'm like, dude, man, like, what do you, I think he said this. I saw that he said it, but I don't know if I didn't see the exact quote or whatever, but like, dude, do you know what you're talking about, man? Like, do you understand like what we're really looking at here? And so when I think about Netanyahu and in these policies, it's tragic. And when I think about just cutting everything off, it's equally as tragic. It's kind of like Elon Musk's statement. So anyway, for me, it's I'm trying to, I try to really take this sociological perspective, right? And try to understand the nature of what's happening. Yeah.
What did you mean when you said cutting everything off?
Like divorcing ourselves from Israel, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay.
Do I think we could do this better? Do I think we could do it peacefully? Yeah, I think we could do it more peacefully for sure. But do I think it could happen more peacefully? Yeah, it could happen more peacefully. And I think I'm always blown away by how it doesn't happen more peacefully. And I think the military-industrial complex, of which, by the way, the United States and Israel are two really important players, and so is Egypt, right? I think that this military-industrial complex at these levels just going to keep things rolling along in ways that I don't think any of us fully understand.
Right. Yeah. Right. Wow. And I think I was going to ask.
And by the way, what God's seed just said there, that the Christians believe that when that Jesus is going to come again when all the Jews gather in Israel in the homeland again, and so the temple's back and Jesus is going to come back and it's all going to be good. I mean, this is just like a really the fact that, first off, that the mere fact that anybody thinks that okay, hang on, I don't want to. Damn.
No, go
It's
ahead.
hard. I can't wrap my mind around having the idea, living with the idea that we're waiting for Jesus to come again to what? Like what's going to happen? And in order for Jesus to come again, we got to get all the Jews back into Israel. And like, I can't wrap my head. What do you mean all the Jews? Like 50%, 51% of them? 80%, 90%, because it's never going to be 100%. And like, what do we mean? And which Jews? Did half Jews, full Jews? Like who are we talking about here? But I hear these Christians, especially a lot of these like really evangelical types who believe in the literal interpretation of the Bible, who make this argument. And I just think, my God, it just like makes my mind want to explode that there's that people can live with a belief like that, based on that Jesus is going to, Jesus and God's going to come back. Is it Jesus or is it God? Someone's coming back.
Jesus, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, if we get Jewish people back to Israel. We say that again?
Oh, I thought so. I mean, my dad was actually talking about it this weekend, just about,
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, he was just about the Christians, like in the rapture and how, they're all going to be taken. Like those who are Christian and have taken Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior, are the ones that are going to be, taken from the earth.
Well, dude, this is going to happen. So we got to continue to support Israel, and we got to keep as many Jews in Israel as possible. We got to send more Jews. I don't know how many have to be there in order for God to finally look down and have her say like, oh, okay, they're all enough Jews are back in Israel, I'm going to send my son again or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh God.
I didn't know that was one of the requirements per se.
Yeah, that's essential. Yeah. So it's just like, I don't know, man. Like I hardly yeah. Nah, I see. Chomsky, Jesus is God, right? If you think of the Holy Trinity, I know it's just like the Holy, but I don't know who's God, what God, who God, what you know what I mean? It's like, when Jesus returns to earth, if Jesus ever came back to earth, most of the Christians would have him burned alive at the stake. This is like the Grand Inquisitor, from the story from Dostoevsky. In the Brothers Karamazov, this is story of the Grand Inquisitor. First off, the Brothers Karamazov is just one of the most awesome books. And do you know Dostoevsky? Have you heard? Okay, so he wrote this book, The Brothers Karamazov, and in the book, there's a story. So he's a philosopher. He's very much an existential philosopher in the 19th century. And when I was in St. Petersburg, I actually went to his house where he visited the house where he did all his writing. Everything is set up exactly like it was. Really one of my favorite authors. But in the story, the story is in the book is it's a novel, right? So there's a story of one of the characters is a writer, and he tells it that the Grand Inquisitor is in Sevilla, Spain, and he's like burning heretics at the stake, right? And Jesus shows up, and the Grand Inquisitor realizes who he is, and he has Jesus arrested and thrown in prison. And the next day, the Grand Inquisitor shows up, and he says to Jesus, like, hey, I know you. Jesus never talks, right? He never talks. It's just the Grand Inquisitor talking for like 20,000 words. I mean, it's just a really, really long story, okay? Right. And Jesus basically says, listen, man, don't come down here and disrupt things. The Grand Inquisitor, this is the Catholic Church, right? Just killing all the heretics and stuff, right? Don't come back down and disrupt things. I know who you are. Like, you created this world, you created human beings just as they are in their miserable form, with all their fear and with all their divisiveness and so on. But, they couldn't handle their freedom that you wanted to give to them. And so what they did was they gave their freedom to us, and they said, listen, we can't deal with this not knowing what to do and how to live and how best to develop our own way of our own morality and our ethics, and to how to follow the commandments that, you know, God has given us. And so we are going to lay our freedom at the feet of the church and say, tell us what to do. And so the church grew, and the church laid out all of these sacraments and rules for people, and people have been ever so thankful for that as a result. And so the Grand Inquisitor is just going on and on and on and on about like how God just screwed up and should never have done that. And now here God comes back, and he's gonna because what he does, what Jesus does, is he raises somebody from the dead, and that's how they knew it was Jesus. He was the one, right? And that's why he had him arrested, because the Grand Inquisitor saw him do that. And so after just blasting Jesus on and on and on for hours, right? Jesus finally gets up out of his, so he opens the door of this prison cell, the Grand Inquisitor does, and he says, now leave and don't come back. And so Jesus gets up and he kisses the Grand Inquisitor on the forehead, and he walks out the cell. And that's it.
He goes back to heaven?
Yeah, he goes back to wherever he came from, I guess heaven. But the point being,
he was like fine.
No, he came back down, I guess, to kind of check things out, or maybe he was going to come back down because God had said that we're going to send Jesus. I'm going to come visit again. And the Grand Inquisitor intervened and said, God, get the hell out of here! Like you're going to make human beings miserable again, because human beings will fight to be free. They'll go to war to be free. They'll massacre other people to be free. But once they have their freedom, they'll do everything in their power to give it away again. Like people can't handle that level, that freedom, which is why we create the lives that we do. It's very difficult to be free.
Give it away. Like, what do you mean by give it away? Like
we embrace ideologies that make no sense. We follow church teachings. We don't. What do you need a church for? You just come up with, decide for yourself the way to live the best life. And in the West, we say we need human beings to be free to make a choice, either be saved or don't be saved. But in the meantime, it's not about being saved or don't be saved. Follow Jesus or don't follow Jesus. In the process of following Jesus, there's 1.5 million decisions that got to be made on a weekly basis. It's like, how do I do that? Like, what do I do? What do I have to do? Which is why we see an endless amounts of people living these very complex, hypocritical lives, or just lives that get lost in doing things like playing video games and watching. Nothing wrong with video games, Joe, but watching television shows or watching YouTube channels and knuckleheads.
Catching strays here.
Yeah.
Wait, so freedom is like you lose freedom when you give into ideology, you're saying? Or like, what does
freedom think just sociologically, right? So here, think about if you have to decide, you're born here and you're going to die. Okay. And you got to make the best of it. You got to, at most, on average, you have about 80 years. Okay. Right. You got to make the best of it. Well, what's it mean to make the best of it? You got to make your life meaningful, right? You want to do the right thing. What's meaningful? Yeah. What's the right thing? How do you live? What do you do?
Sociologically, that could be anything based on
anything at all
where you are. That could
anything at all. And because you can't sit for very long with the kinds of questions that are going to come up. Listen, when I'm in a place like Haiti, and I go in this hospital in Haiti, a state-run hospital, and there is, there are babies in this hospital that are going to die. Okay. People are going to die. People are dying. I have enough money in my pocket to keep them alive. Forget about my bank account. Forget about everything else in me, right? I have enough money to save the lives of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of human beings. So what do I do with that? What do? I'm in this hospital. I got money in my pocket. I could adopt this child. I could, remember, I think I don't know if I talked to you about the story, but they asked, do you want to name the child? And I'm like, I can't name the child. Like,
why'd they ask you that?
You right? What's that?
Why did they ask
Because
you
this one child didn't even have a name, bro. Didn't even have a name. Somebody brought the child. They found the child. Somebody brought it. It was probably, they estimated it was about 2.5 years old. The child weighed about 6 pounds. Okay. It's
that?
just like, was going to die. So here's my point though.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with that? What do I do with that? Okay. I could have saved the life of this child and I didn't do it. Now, many people, you could too. There are all sorts of things you could do, but I've been in many situations in my life where I absolutely could have saved the lives of people and I didn't do it. Okay.
Right.
Or I did do it. I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do what I have to do it. And other times you don't. Okay. So now here are the questions. How do I manage that? Like, how do I live? How do I live with myself? How do I manage that? Like, how do I wake up every day and try to figure out how to make this work? Okay, well, it's impossible. And so what I do is I just like, I lose myself in something. You know, maybe I watch the Olympics or I work or I put a lecture together or I do whatever, but I follow an ideology. I pick a religion out or I just follow the one that I was born into. That's the easiest thing to do, and pick one out and I follow it and I just go with it and I don't have to think about it. And that's what I mean about giving freedom away. To really sit with the freedom, I'd still be sitting outside that hospital in Haiti. Years later, I'd be sitting there like this, trying to figure out what the hell I should be doing. What should I do? The child would have long ago died, but I never would have left the steps of the damn hospital. I'd still be there trying to figure out what the hell.
If you had freedom?
Yeah, if I'm really trying to figure it out, you know, and then that's like, what kind of a human being am I? Like, come on, man. Shit. So this is
so are you saying like freedom is like true freedom is closer to love or altruism or empathy?
No. I think true freedom is just anguish. It's pure anguish is what it is. And because it means you have to take responsibility for so many things that you think, say, and do. That's
instead of continuously using cognitive dissonance to relieve yourself of all of the anguish.
Yeah. So what we do then is what Dostoevsky was saying in this story is God gave that to human beings. He said, I want you to be free. And I want you to be free to choose the life, to follow me, right? Good, all that is good, all that is godly, right? To follow me or to follow the dark path. But it's one thing to say that, but the moment you turn toward what is godly, there are a million questions. What do you mean, what is godly? What's that mean?
Right,
What does it mean? What's my first step? What's my 37th step? What's my 185th step? It's like there's no answer to the question. But if you're going to stay in your freedom, you're just going to sit there and feel the anguish until you make a decision and figure it out and live with the consequences of the decision that you did. Yeah, that's a perfect quote right there, Bernard Shaw. Yeah,
that's read it.
And so that's what Dostoevsky is saying. So he sends Jesus on his marching orders back to heaven. Like, get the hell out of here. Like, leave us alone. Human beings they couldn't handle what you gave to them, but they gave it to us, and now we're giving them what they need and what they want.
Interesting.
So
they couldn't.
I don't know how we got to that.
No, but it's super interesting.
Yeah. Wait, how did we get to that though? What were we talking about? Israel. Oh, we were talking about the idea that some people live with this idea that, God's going to return if, all the Jews or the Jewish people or all the Jewish people, or again, I don't know what number it has to be to get back to Israel. I mean, they just can't. That to me is.
And it's seems to me another way of relieving responsibility. Like God's going to come back. He's going to fix everything. Right. You just sort of leave it up. Then you can just be like, well, God's going to come back, so I don't have to really worry about it. It's like, no, you have to worry about it. You got a lot of stuff going on. You know what I mean? And by the way, I see Axel saying, and please take a look at in UN to the human rights. And I think, when I think about human rights in the UN, I think, well, the UN
is an organization. It's a global organization that was put together, assembled by the dominant states in the world. Okay. So for all the good that the UN could do and might possibly do or might represent and does represent at some level, it is an organization that was assembled by the most powerful states in the world. And what that means is the most powerful states in the world put the charter together in a way that allowed them to remain the most powerful states in the world. And so the most powerful states are the ones that are going to decide when to implement all the laws and the rules of the UN and all the assemblies and so on. And it's like it's going to be that way. You know, it was not assembled. It was not an organization that was put together by the nations of the Southern Hemisphere, let's say, or the nations that were the least developed in the world. And it wasn't put together in order for the least developed nations of the world to rise up to challenge the more developed nations. It's the exact opposite of that. So when I think about the United Nations, I think, well, it doesn't strike me as odd that in the end, it doesn't have a lot of teeth. You know, the organization itself doesn't have a lot of teeth and power to really to enforce right and wrong. Right, I should say. Yeah. So
I just saw cool. I don't know how to pronounce the name. I don't want to mess it up. But is it Chuam or Kuam?
no, it's a play on Noam Chomsky. Chomsky.
Okay. But it was interesting. Thank God for making me an atheist. That's interesting. Is that?
Thank God for making me an atheist. Yeah. I used to have a pin that said, a little pin I wore. Lori talks about it. When she first met me, I wore it on my jacket. Thank God I'm an atheist. You know? Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I appreciate anyway, hey, listen, Elijah, you can find the Grand Inquisitor online. You can find recordings of it. If you go to YouTube, I'm sure you can find recordings of it. Listen to it.
I'll check it out. I will.
Bro, I already sent it to him on Slack.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Jeff, put it up on the chat, actually, if you got it. It's really really quite a beautiful read. Like Dostoevsky is such a really awesome writer.
I keep thinking about how you're saying, like, when we have freedom, we're truly like facing anguish, and we're no longer distracted by the millions of things that we can be distracted by as humans. And so it keeps bringing me back to just thinking about personal responsibility, or like civil responsibility. And then I was also thinking about like, what do we need to get us to that place of like feeling responsible for, just as an individual, for things that we can do. And then I was also thinking about psychedelics again, if that's okay to talk about here. But like, what role does that play? Maybe would it play a role in, because we have all these different, I don't know, I'm just, and I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's always like, if people just took, a little bit of this or that, and I don't know if you believe that's true. Or
no, I don't actually. Well, I do at some level, but in the end, it wears off. If you could have the one experience where you see the multiple dimensions of the world, it's like, that would probably be a really nice thing for some people, for sure. But in the end, it wears off, and you're back to where you were. Right. This is part of the problem with addiction, that you can, you got to go back to the starting line at some point without any of this assemblage of substances in your mind that allows you to see things in a different way. And so then you got to start back from scratch and figure it out. And when you just yourself, if you put yourself in the situation where you have to really confront some things. And you probably will at some point. Once you do, you will see how incredibly onerous it is to have to be thinking all the time about about this moral passion play that we're living in every single moment. And wow, man, it just like I have the images of so many people in my mind, and so many, and these places where I've been, like refugee camps and stuff, right? Places where I've been that are still operating. It's just one after another, and it's always with me. And I wish I had a very simple way of just organizing my brain to think that there's a creator, and the creator wants me to think X, Y, and Z, and I could just put it in a box and do that, and that would be great. But instead, I have to live with a certain amount of anguish.
Is that it just makes me, because you're like you always say in class, there's so many problems, and you can't. And I guess I'm thinking about, like, you're talking about systems, and the system that we're in, where our system isn't made to, I guess, to really help others. Like that's
no, it is.
No,
it is. Listen, right. No, it's not that. It's fine. It doesn't matter what we do and how we build a system. We're going to have to run up against these kinds of issues, right? Each individual has to come up with the shoulds and oughts and right and wrong and all of this kind of stuff, right? And everybody, it doesn't matter what it's a little bit different with us because we have access to the global world, right? So we can jump on the web and we can look at some of the stuff going on the other side of the world and be like, oh my God, I could give $2 to the crowdfunding campaign, and right now in Bangladesh, and for all the uprising and upheaval there. I mean, whatever it would be, right? It doesn't matter. You have to. There's no way that you can create a system or build a system, a social, political, economic system, that you get away from all that. And that's part of the pain, right? That's part of the struggle. By the way, I'm going to go back to what Eric said about golf. When I golf, so I used to golf when I was young, and I started when I think I was 15, because I had bought a motorcycle before I had my license, and I could ride my motorcycle around, and I didn't worry about the cops catching me or anything. I would put my golf clubs on my back, and I would go play golf. So I think I was 15 when I started, and I stopped when I was 24, maybe just about to turn 25. And when I left Ohio, I didn't take my clubs with me when I went off to study for my PhD. So I never played again, never swung a club even until last December. And then I just got hooked again. And now when I golf, I think of nothing except golf. It is pure meditation for me. All I do is just think about hitting the ball the best I possibly can and what club. And man, it is the most beautiful, perfect, balanced, calm time. Now, mind you, every other ball that I hit, it doesn't do what I want it to do, right? So, but I've learned very quickly to accept that. And even when I hit shitty balls, which again is 50% of the time, it just gives me an opportunity to hit a more complex shot than I would if it was laying perfectly in the middle of the fairway kind of thing, But yeah, that's why I golf, man. I golf purely to escape. And well, because I love it and it's fun and it's a challenge, but also it's a real escape for me. Yeah.
So is that what you're talking about when you say, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Just when you said moral passion play, you were talking about like this idea of escaping and just everybody escaping.
Yeah. Yep. It's a time when the only moral question that I have when I'm golfing is the right or wrong, right? Good or bad, right? It's not really a moral question, but in essence, it really is. What's the right club to choose in this situation, right? What's the best one? What's the goodest club?
Mhm.
So, you know, like,
And it,
it's so in a way that's it, man. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not thinking about anything at all in the world, man. It's right there. And I don't have many places in my life where that's true. So it's really sweet for me to have that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So would it be better off if we, do you think we'd be better off if we all felt that anguish?
No, I think most
Okay.
people, yeah, I think you can't. Who would want, first off, who would want it? Right. Like that. I mean, okay. Why have I don't want it. I'd rather live in my golf mentality 24/7. Man, I would
Mhm.
be far more content and happy if I could just do that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I can't, right? I tasted, it's like, this is tasting the apple, right? This is the
What?
story, the
What is
Adam and Eve
that? What is
story,
the
right?
apple? Right, right. But what's the apple? The golf?
Well, the apple represents truth. It's like putting
Right.
glasses on and vision, right?
Okay.
The apple represents the complexities of right and wrong, good and bad. Okay.
Mhm.
So the apple
Mhm.
is it's the allegory of morality. And so once you bite into that, you see like, oh my God, I see now that I have to make decisions about what is right and what is wrong. And I see
Yeah.
that it's no longer just pure bliss. It's like
Mhm.
there are things that are good, there are things that are bad, there are things that are right, there are things that are wrong. And I have to I'm an actor in this play. In fact, sometimes I'm a lead actor, sometimes I'm a secondary actor, and sometimes I'm just part of the larger crowd, right? But the point
Mhm.
is, I'm always acting, and that's what the
Mhm.
apple represents, and that's why, you know, it's this is exactly what the Inquisitor was saying, that you can't. He came in and said, "I saw you let Adam eat the apple." We always turn it that Eve tempted Adam, so it's the woman. This is because that men wrote this because it's the woman that you led us to that, right? And so
Right.
and that you did that, and that's fine, but they didn't want that. They need to stop thinking about the apple and all those things. And so they came to us and said, "Hey, can you build us a big church? Can you tell us what to do?" And they say, "Yep." And the Grand Inquisitor said the more powerful, we had to be really, really powerful, because otherwise people wouldn't follow us. And so, like, okay, that makes sense. Like, you don't want to question that. You want to have unquestioning authority that you're following. And so, like, okay. That's why people love Trump in part. It's like the same kind of thing. Or they follow the Democratic Party. It's not about individuals. It's just their party. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's my
Wow.
take.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to wrap my head around everything. And
Mm.
this is cool. This is great.
Eric is saying, I thought the apple represented temptation. No, the temptation, that's what we turn it. No, but the sociological piece here is that the apple represents truth and the complexity, the vagaries of truth. And you're just living. You could be living here, man. Living in Eden is perfect. You're not thinking about anything. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no good, there's no bad. And the apple represents the sudden awareness that, no, wait a minute. I take what is on this plane of differences, right? They're just differences. So it's like our physical features. Some of us have, you take the average size nose, okay? And then some of us have larger than average size noses. Some of us have smaller than average size noses, and the size is different. For some, it's wider, it's flatter, it's longer, it's pointed, it's whatever it is, right? But as long as they're on this plane, they're just different. There's no issue. There's nothing to be thinking about. It doesn't matter what my nose is. It's just on this plane. You just plug it into the plane. My nose goes here. Your nose goes here. It's just nothing. But then you take this thing and you put it on this axis, and you put good and bad, best and worst, and you start to stratify in some way, right? And this is now you've changed the ball game. Well, that's what the apple represents, is taking this plane and turning it this way. And now you got to deal with all of the things that come along with that. And that means that's just torturous, man. Yeah, Schrodinger's cat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Man, it's just like a beautiful. It's painful. It's so painful. Except when I'm golfing. Yeah. But have I ever had a conversation with a hard determinist who doesn't believe there's a thing such as choice? Yeah, I have actually, but I can go there if I did enough mushrooms, I could probably like just fall into that hard determinist thing. But I have met people who are truly, they don't stay there. You can't stay there very long, because in the end, you're going to have to wrestle with choice. So you can't stay in the hard determinist thing. So Elijah, this is like, if you're truly living in the moment, like you can imagine you're living in the moment, right? Everything you do is been willed into existence by something, right? By you, by others. You're part of the world. It's one fluid ether that we're in. And so so this is the hard determinist idea that I pick up my water. It was already determined that I pick up this water and I take a drink.
Right.
Okay, it's great. So I have no freedom. There's nothing, because everything I do, I pick up, I move the mouse, I move closer to my microphone, everything. It's all been determined, that kind of thing, you know? So that's that idea.
Right. And so you're saying you have had a conversation with someone, but you said you can't stay there? Like, how come you can't stay there?
Yeah. Hey, wait, Stephen. Hey, Stephen Kirkpatrick. Hey, could you hop on the stream a little for a hot minute? Do you think you could do you have a camera? Could you hop on? I'd really like to, if we could have a conversation about what's going on in the UK with the uprisings. So reach out to Jeff, or Jeff, you reach out to Stephen. It'd be really interesting. Yeah, man. Okay. 5 minutes. All right, man. We'll wait for you. Yeah. So anyway, that's the piece, right? So if I could live in my golf mentality, where I really just could just be in a state of bliss, I'd be there in a heartbeat. But I can't. I've already tasted the apple, and for me, I've tasted the apple in such a way that I've gone beyond where probably many other people do, because I've put myself in, these situations where I'm really having to wrestle with things that that probably many people do, which is why soldiers struggle so much. When you go off to war, man, you're making decisions all the time. It's so painful. Yeah, man. Police, everybody, man. I was talking to a cop the other day, retired police officer, and man, just everything, just how much the struggle trying to figure it out.
What was he saying? Like, were there certain things?
Just the endless decisions that he had to make every single day. You're always confronting people whose lives who are on the struggle bus to start with. You're most often dealing with people who are on the struggle bus for one reason or the other. Okay. Some that they're responsible for, some that other life is responsible for. And then you got to decide, how are you going to treat them? What are you going to do? You're going to arrest them. You're going to charge them. You're going to this, you're going to that. How are you going to talk to them? And like every single day, it's a conundrum. It's a moral. This is the moral. What did I call it? The moral passion play. Yeah, it's the moral passion play.
And yeah, it's interesting. Like I had an interesting moment when I was in New Hampshire one time when I was pulled over, and because I didn't know that, and I've just experienced for me, just and I get that there's sometimes like there's certain things that are so just like the demeanor, like they're saying that cops, they have a responsibility and there's so much choice. There's so many choices they have to make on a daily basis. And I just remember witnessing at one point, like just the demeanor of a cop for me was, it didn't seem right. It didn't feel right for me. And I know it was just this one individual experience.
Yeah.
And when you talk about like certain cops having to make decisions, whether, you know, that could be arrest them or like, maybe I shouldn't do this or should do this, or
do I give you a ticket? Do I not give you a ticket? Did I have a bad day? Do I have a demeanor because I'm having a bad day? I'm annoyed. I'm this, I'm that. Like, maybe, you know, like maybe you just, the way the person says hello to me as a cop just like sets me off in this tiny, subtle way, you know, like, I don't know. And it's no different than anybody else, man. And it's just a moral conundrum on a absolute regular basis, right? Which is kind of what we all have in these ways. But you know, if we don't always, we may not always recognize it because it may not be as profoundly out of the box as it can be for certain people in certain times. But we're all dealing with it at every moment. And
I just really feel like as we just really struggle with compassion as a society. I feel like
well, you know, we're working, we're probably up against something that's really a bit over, we're over our heads right now with this, you know, with social media and stuff, right? Like we're over our heads. We're not, you know, human beings, we're not meant to have to be responsible for watching the kinds of things that we can watch on the internet, for, you know, people who are selling the internet for a profit, for us, for clicks, right? Have learned that human beings are attracted to darkness in this really odd way. So you have this thing called like doom scrolling, you know. Yeah, Stephen, take your time. And so we do that, and you know, it's like it's almost so compulsive we can't stop it. And what does that? So it's like we're up against something that might be more powerful than we are as a collective, you know, populace, right?
Yeah.
And it may be that it takes us down.
Right. And I want to know who's doom scrolling. Like now I'm like, it just even like on Instagram or just these random social media platforms, or are you saying like these
just average people are just constantly, it's just part of what it is. It's like we click from one thing to another. And you know, there's a we don't people enjoy the good stuff, like the good news story and stuff, right? And we really like that. But if human beings were if human beings were more drawn to the good and the light and the holy than they are the darkness and the bad, like stories about people that got screwed over by somebody else, or they got revenge for this or revenge for that, or whatever it is, right? If we were more drawn to the good, the light, the uplifting, and the holy, then most of what you see on the internet would be that. Well, first off, most of what we see is just somewhere in the middle, right? It's just it's just stuff like the weather and God knows what, right? But then you have all of this here, and then you have this. And it just may be that we're up against this in a way that we're out of our league and we're never going to be able to catch up. And that's just getting, and it could just kind of take us down in these odd ways.
Yeah. And is it like the problem, like for some have like taken the bite of the apple, but don't see any gray area. Like, don't you, like you've taken the bite of the apple, but you see gray area, right?
Well,
Like
you
it's not like just black and white for you.
yeah. Well, you take
And then
we as a species, like, first off, it's allegory, right? It's just metaphor. I mean, the apple idea exists in every historic, religious, spiritual tradition I've ever seen anywhere in the world. Something about that, right? The origin stories, I should say, that's always part of it. And you can go anywhere, right? Go to Indonesia, and you go wherever you want to go, and you're going to find the similar story, because human beings are trying to manage the fact that they don't know how to they're trying to manage their own moral behavior and thinking, as we should be, right? Like, of course, this is a major thing, man. It's all about really right and wrong in a way. So so the easiest thing, so as a species, we bit the apple, right? And there are many people who, they just decide they just, for whatever reason, they just grab on to the first thing or something they can grab onto, and they just say, hey, I'm following you, tell me exactly what to do. And other people stay in the gray area. It just doesn't work for them. But it's hard to be in the gray area. Yeah.
Hard. You think it's hard? Like, hard to be? It's hard.
It's really difficult. For me, I don't know how I do. The only way I can do it is that I teach. I talk about it. And everything I do as a teacher is talking about the gray area of life. I'm just trying to work shit out. I'm trying to work out how to think about things like immigration, or things like, race relations, or things like our DNA ancestry, or one thing after another. That's all I'm doing. And all I'm doing every day is trying to figure it out. And if I just talk about it out loud, or if I talk to students and ask them questions to see what they're thinking, then it's just me trying to, it's just I'm just delaying I'm hiding in a series of questions in a way, so that I don't have to really, really fully wrestle with what's going on. Because if I just sit and think about it too long, then I just go crazy. So.
Right. And that's why you're saying for others, it's so easy just to pick a side.
Well, I think so. I don't know. It seems to me that's the only way. It seems to me that I think about some of these ideologies out there, some of the thinking that so many of us have, where they're very certain about, their politics or their religion or whatever it is. They're very, very certain about it. Anything, whatever it is, however you want to do it. It seems to me that the only way they can be so certain is that they just grabbed onto something, and they're just not willing or not wanting to look at anything that is marginally complex. And again, I wish I could do that, but I can't. Wish I had that, especially some of the religious thinking. Things.
Yeah, because it brought me back. It just keeps bringing me back to, like, for those that are in positions of power, that don't see gray area and only see black and white.
Yeah. Well, some of the positions of power people are like that because they have to, right? I mean, you want to hold on to power, you just do, right? You gotta, like, I was listening to Buttigieg the other day, and he was being interviewed. I think it was like the New York Times Magazine or something. I don't know. And it was a long interview. It was like 35 minutes or so. And this guy is just brilliant, right? I mean, he's brilliant. He could be an advertising executive. He could do whatever. It's like he would get asked a question, and he would just download the answer in his brain. And it's like Lori. It's like my wife, Lori. I mean, I'm saying that for the stream, Lori's your boss, but so that's not why I included my wife in it. But it's like, she's just like, wow, man, I'll watch her navigate really complex things, and she'll just come up with this answer. DJ does the same thing. DJ and Lori, they're just amazing at how they can navigate in these shark-filled waters with something that they have to say that's incredibly complex. And I'm like, man, how do you do that? And I'm spilled milk, right? I'm just spilling all over the place, trying to get to the truth. So I watched Buttigieg, and I'm just like, whoa, man, he never answered a question. Well, he did answer the questions, but he answered questions by downloading a file, and his answer was up here. And then he pulled it in like, whoop, and then it came out of him. I'm like, whoa, man, that was just absolutely brilliant. But that's how you get power. That's how you hold power. You just have very, you come up with what it is that you need to say, and you keep it very simple, and you don't invite the gray area in at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Like, yeah, it just, like, I feel like I'm beating the dead horse now because I'm going back to cops and just
Yeah.
when, if like, how much are they taught, or like how essential is it to be trained on like the gray area, or is it just about protect?
It's all about gray area, man, with cops. You don't see it.
It is?
And they don't, yeah, it's all about gray. Dude, they're trained. I mean, listen, their training is about the black and white inside of all the gray. It's unbelievable, man. When you talk to cops about their training and stuff, like,
Right.
holy smokes. God, it's so fascinating, really. Hey, let's bring Steven in.
Cool.
I'm curious. Steven, what's up?
Hello.
Steve?
How's it
Right, sort
going?
of camera out. Not too bad my end, but boy, has it all gone to crap.
Listen, man. Yeah. So listen, what is I mean, okay, so you've got a lot of protests going on in certain areas, right?
Yeah.
Like it's always very isolated. Yeah, but can you walk us through a little bit?
Well, the history is there are 3 girls who were stabbed to death by a 17-year-old boy in a dance school in Southport in Liverpool area, and it somehow got branded as a racial attack. And the far right of the UK, you have the English Defence League, you have GB News and stuff. They were starting saying that it was an asylum seeker who actually carried out the attack. But actually, the boy was born in Cardiff.
Yeah.
And so he is British born, although his original parents were in Rwanda many years ago.
Yeah.
And they had come and they'd started a life in the UK. And
So
we seem to be having there's this massive debate about immigration and how many people have been let in. And because we've obviously changed government from Conservative to Labour, and Labour have been saying that Conservatives have basically screwed up the whole system. They had this, they spent 700 million on trying this where they would deport asylum seekers to one of the countries in Africa. I can't remember if it was Rwanda or something, but they had spent so much to do that and nothing happened. So waste taxpayers' money and stuff.
So listen, so one of the things that I've been kind of watching, paying a little bit of attention to is over the years is the way like Russian trolls are just really pushing, trolling and instigating stuff. Here in the United States, I mean, we're seeing it with the elections, and we're going to continue to see it. It's like, so I'm wondering if so I was reading about how that some people were identifying, and I'm very careful about where I get this from, right? But that a lot of the Russian trolls immediately started to push the asylum seeker narrative, right?
Yeah.
Is there any talk of that? Like the folks who are protesting against immigrants, we say the far right, but I mean they're the national.
It's a hot topic, and
do they talk about the Russian trolls though? Is that part of
No.
it? Like they got played?
No, and it's not just us trolls. It's actually some of our own news broadcasts and how the media actually broadcast the thing, and they had false information in some of the casts, which is part of what's really stirred up the trouble. But to give you an idea, there's going to be protests tomorrow, there's protests tonight, and we're talking about where last night there was Plymouth, Birmingham, parts of London. You have the ones that happened up in the northeast of the country, where they were basically looting, setting fire to police cars, throwing stones. Belfast, there's been a lot of issues in Belfast as part of all of this. And it just seems, you know, each city of the bigger cities, it seems to be happening and growing. And we know it's to its stage. And I'll tell you, the stage is that in our Birmingham office, we have a work experience student. And basically, because it has been reports that there's going to be a protest in the city centre, which is nearby where our office is, and potentially that we've told staff to work from home tomorrow for safety. You know,
man, dude,
so,
this is like, wait, so where are you? Where do you live again?
I'm based in Derby, which is basically North Midlands of the UK, right next door to Nottingham. And there's been protests in Derby. There's been protests at Market Square in Nottingham, where I actually work. And so we're a bit further away from all of that. But, you know, there's lots of arrests. Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister's, I think he's now done 3 news conferences about, you know, making sure these arrests happen, making sure specialist police are there, because now they've got police in riot gear, you know, trying to control it. And they got one side, they've got the peaceful protesters protesting to say, you know, about people's rights and, you know, immigration isn't all bad and that. And then you've got the other side, you know, which is protesting on the racist. And I used the word quite strongly because it is very racist for what is coming out of that side on that.
So how many people, so here's a quick question. And Elijah, if you have a question, hop in, but or when you have a question, how many of the people so I mean, you have the protesters against immigration, the immigration flow, you have the counter protesters, right? But how many of the protesters against immigration are really moderate, that they're kind of saying, listen, we just need to get control over this, man. It's just kind of gotten out of control. Like, how many people are making that statement?
I don't think there's that many. I mean, there's a lot of people who are really scared by the whole incidents happening. You know, but
they're not out in the streets, right?
They're not out in the streets.
You might be like me, right? Like, because I would say, like, hey, man, but you can't have unfettered or immigration. Like, we gotta work it out. We gotta make sure that we keep this thing in line. But I wouldn't be out in the streets. In either side, I wouldn't be out protesting against the anti-immigrant folks, and I wouldn't be out.
But it seems like there's a lot of things stirring up hatred and that too. You know, when they're posting on social media and stuff where a protest is going to be and things like that, and you know, come in numbers and that, and then you get, I mean, why are they throwing, you know, fireworks, bricks and stuff at the police if they want to peacefully protest against immigration? So why are they there with caps on, face masks and stuff, hiding their identity if they're not there to cause trouble? And that's so many people on that side that are causing the trouble.
And are those man, in what your gut feeling? First off, I mean, you know, immigration, we're not, it's only going to be more problematic, man, as we move forward, right? You're going to see more immigration. We're going to see more and more difficulties in trying to, you know, as we say, get it under control. I mean, this is just the nature of it. The world is, you know, yesterday I was looking at the birth rates around the world that are just falling everywhere, except in Africa. In Africa, they're just like continue to rocket, you know. Well, listen, man, eventually, first off, maybe we'll finally I say we because I got to go back to the global community here allowing it to happen, but maybe Africa will finally develop to the degree to which it really could. But it's people are going to continue to go north, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is it's just I mean, we know what he says is really crap, but I mean, I can quote directly from what Elon Musk put on Twitter about this whole situation. He says, they are, and I can't stress this enough, a tiny minority of a population of 67 million, he added. In short, the riots may be no joke, but civil war most definitely is.
Yeah.
So why is he, that is stirring, why has he posted that?
Yeah. Yeah. The problem is don't weigh in on stuff, man. Like none of this is good. Okay.
No.
Protests, violent protests, whatever form they take, the potential for a massive explosion. It's not fun and games. We did a class a couple of years ago with Julie and one of our colleagues from Iraq, and we called it Not Fun and Games. This isn't fun, man. This is not what you want, and nobody wants it. And for the people who are living in the region, first off in the cities, but also in those particular areas where the protests are happening, this is not fun and games for them, and it's not fun and games for anybody, really, for immigrants, for anyone.
And they are targeting hotels where some immigrants are actually staying because they can't find space for them, so the government is putting them up into hotels, and these hotels are being targeted by this far right group, and that's smashing it up and stuff. It's
so the far right group is being also, I mean, so there's a collective unease, okay, and that's understandable. As a member of the blue collar working class myself, there's just an ongoing collective unease about what's going on. And then you watch other people who you're being told are lower than you on the socioeconomic ladder, and you're being told, hey, they are lower than you and you have all the power, and then you watch people climb the ladder and advance beyond where you're at. And it's not everybody, but all you need are a few cases to imagine that it is everybody. And here in the United States, you have this special interest stories about how these immigrants who came to the United States, and look at them and look how well they're doing, and this is really amazing. And you're dealing, you're living in this town where you've been living for your whole life, and you're watching the jobs leaving one after another. It's like, man, why wouldn't you be out protesting? Like, come on. Especially if you have the idea that your government, you're spending all these tax dollars to support immigrants. And like, why wouldn't you protest? Like, why wouldn't I be out throwing, Molotov cocktails and bricks and that sort of thing if I think that, and if I'm really aware of that? And it's like, damn, man. So this is a similar thing, I think, in the UK, as we see. You guys are in your moment right now. Do you have the sense that people, if the conservatives have won the election, do you have a sense that this would have exploded in the same way, or is part of it an explosion against labor?
I still think it would have happened because it's been building. It's been building up. Brexit was all about immigration and closing our borders, and not accepting what Europe wanted us to take a certain percentage of people in there, and that is how it was sold to a lot of people, and especially the older generation, and their votes ended up counting. And you look at where we are now. We're out of Europe. We're struggling financially as a country. We're having to borrow so much. And yes, Labour governments come in, and they're probably going to be raising taxes to pay for things that are broken. And I know personally that that's got to happen. Otherwise, where else are they going to get money from?
Yeah, for sure.
It's
Yeah.
that, there's only so much you can do on that, but it's also, immigration has been a massive topic in
Yeah.
part of the election that was started, and
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
it's very, Julie, I mean, we track it in Social 19, different parts of Europe and stuff, but Julie just returned from Spain and Portugal. And wow, man, she's blown away by the number of Africans in Portugal, especially because from Mozambique, right? Because Mozambique was a Portuguese colony, but she was just like, man, both in the South and also in Lisbon. And she's like, whoa, man, really blown away. And I was in Portugal many years ago, but in Spain, the Moroccans and North Africans and so on. But yeah, this is it, man. It's like when you have an extreme increase, it just, and in the UK, right? Like London is incredibly diverse. Right. So when I'm in London, I'm just like, this is like being in New York. I mean, this is like an international city. But when you get out into like where you live and so on, it gets just wider and wider and wider.
You'd be surprised because the Birmingham, Nottingham, Derby, and Leicester,
the larger cities,
we do have quite a high population of mixed minorities. I mean, Leicester has the highest population of Muslims outside of London.
But these are somewhat larger cities, though, right?
250,000 people.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, got you. Size.
But when you get to the small towns of like 20,000.
Oh yeah, I used to live in Lincolnshire, and to see a person of color was very rare.
Got you. Okay.
It was an extreme when I was going through school in the 90s. We had a black English teacher, and she was the only person in years that I've just seen that wasn't white.
Yeah.
And in that area, and we are more diverse in the UK now, and we kind of celebrate that in some respects. I mean, you look at the British top dish is tandoori chicken, which is a sort of an India influence sort of dish and stuff. And you can't go to any city or town where you won't be able to find so much of a different cuisines and stuff around, because we are a multicultural society. Half our doctors are Asian, from India or from the Far East.
Man, this is well, I hope. I mean, it's unfortunate that this exploded in the way that it did. Clearly, it's also unfortunate that the lives that are, it's just, oh my God, man.
I have the BBC News website on at the moment, and it's just flicked up saying that immigration lawyers are fearing their offices being targeted. Rioters tried to get into a house. They smashed up, some restaurants and stuff that had immigrants working in it.
Whoa.
And, there's a lot, and I know Starmer is saying he's going to clamp down, and basically anyone who is identified will face the full law. With our prisons being full, I'm kind of asking, okay, where are they going to put them?
It's a lot of people, and also the truth is it's not it's not identifying people who are protesting violently and prosecuting them doesn't solve the issue. The issue is it's a world that's been built on a considerable amount of inequality, and people are going to move around the world. That the UK, just like other places in Europe, you need labor. like not labor, not the Labor Party. You need labor, you need workers,
Yeah.
and so workers are going to move in, and you got to figure out a way to assimilate workers into your society so that they actually become British citizens and not like a separate world. Now, as it turns out, in South Asia and Pakistan and India, the immigrants there were such strong waves that that you have these separate enclaves of communities, but mostly you don't want that. You want to bring people in and assimilate them, and this just makes it more difficult to do that. And it just you're not going to send them home. You're not doing that. Like, it's not going to happen. So you got to figure out another way to make it work.
And the other task is there's so much misinformation flying around in social media on some of the not so monitored news agencies. And there's quite a lot of that is being blamed for stirring up this violence that started in Southport, and that because of misinformation,
which is the idea of the Russian trolls jumping in. Man, I read a really, really very well thought out. It was what's the magazine? Wired It was in Wired, and it was this person had done research for about 6 months. It was such a well researched article, and they just laid out how the Russian how it just operates, man. And like, oh my God, it's just brilliant. You want to destroy the West? You destroy it right on these devices right here, man. That's how you do it. You let us just destroy ourselves by just fomenting anxiety, pain, anger, and rage.
Or doing what China does and what Russia has been doing, and that is basically, stamping down on what information gets to those people. And so they are, we know this as a fact on the Ukraine-Russia war, that a lot of Russians do not know actually what is going on, because they only get one side of the story, and which is why it's quite important for some of the news agencies, trying to give verified information.
But Elijah and I were just talking about this with, when we were talking about like eating the apple, right? Like, part of once you really are willing to walk into the gray area, you gotta commit to figuring out how to shine a light around so you can make sense of the shadows. And it just takes so much to do that, and not just be kind of dumb, as I would say, as I spent many years of my life thinking that I was seeing with clarity, but I was really being just pretty dumb. And man. Well, listen, Stephen, I hope you all. I'll keep my eye out, but man, I hope it calms down. But even when it calms down, like, what the hell does that mean? What's it mean? Because this is what's there, and it's what's there. And
it's just interesting to see what the governments are going to do next, because there's only so many police we have because of the cuts during the Conservative government. We actually lost 20,000 police officers in the UK as part of saving money. So now we've got so many police on the front line having to do this and try and control, where the numbers are actually a lot lower than that. And so it's one of these I suppose it's a massive headache for our government now, because they've got so many constraints to try and solve this with, that it's where do they go, and
hey, so I have a quick question, and then I'll let you go, and we're gonna end here also. So for you, you're just like what are average people like you thinking about this? Just concern and
concern. It's the concern with how easy it turns to violence. From a small act of something that's happened, which, yes, it was a horrible thing, you know, we hope that that 17-year-old gets life imprisonment and stuff for what he has done.
Yeah.
But to have all of this rioting happening to people who have had nothing to do with it,
Yeah.
you know, people being picked on because of their race,
Yeah.
you know, even though, you know, they may not even be an asylum seeker, they may just be, you know, we have so many British, you know, people from India and that who have lived in the UK all their life and that who have been born in the UK, but some of them are being targeted, and it's just, you know, where's this going?
Man, this, I hear you. Yeah, so it's just fear. It's just concern and fear and hoping for the best. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fear is there true because it's people not going to be turning up to work, so they're afraid of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, in a situation with company I work for where our Birmingham office people have been told work from home tomorrow because we know there's going to be a big protest nearby and that for their safety.
Yeah.
You know, and that is new territory, to be honest. You know, we're talking about that unease that probably people haven't felt since the Good Friday Agreement.
Yeah.
You know, because then in London, if you're in London, you're always afraid of bombs or stuff like that from the IRA.
Yeah.
And that is now people who are going to work and stuff, they're a bit afraid that something's going to start popping up. And
I was thinking, I was thinking about that. If I were in the UK right now, I'd be really thinking about the pre-Good Friday Agreement. Yeah. Man, this is like, all right, bro. Listen, man. Thanks for hopping on. Good luck. Yeah. Be well.
I'm glad I'm working from home tomorrow, as one of my days I do work from home. So we just keep glued to the news. To, you know, BBC is my source because it's verified and, you know, it's as best as on that, so I can keep an eye on what's going on. And
all right.
Thanks for the insight, Stefan.
No problem. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right. We'll be in touch.
Yep. All right. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks. Hey, Elijah, I think I'm ready to pop off. That's cool. That's good. I'm glad he hopped on because I've been really interested about that. All right, listen, man. I'm headed out for a few days, and then we'll hop back on next week. We'll just keep it going. We'll hop back on next Wednesday. So just gonna keep it going Wednesday. All right, man.
Cool. Enjoy your little break.
All right, Jeff's gonna end the stream, and then we'll stay in for a hot minute. All right, man.
Cool.
All right. See you, everybody. Be well.